Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. It is Monday, July 17th, 2023, the year I call 7, and I'm here with number 5 in our 7 soul strengthening pillars to building your dream life as an artist. I have shared 4. Heart was number 1, mind was number 2, soul was number 3, body was number 4, and here we are at number 5, and that is our spirit. I wrote quite a few notes yesterday, so this might be a long video, but our spirit is the foundation of our inner being, and so it is very important that we are in tune with our spirit. So hope you're ready for this. For those of you that are just joining us, I have all of these on our YouTube channel. And when I can, I post snippets of each of these on Instagram because we only have a certain amount of time that we can post on there. So if you're interested in any of these, I encourage you to watch them on either platform. And I have 7, so I'm hoping to wrap this by early August. And then I'm going to do our workshop in the fall. I wanted to do it in the spring, but this is where I'm at, and we're going to do it in the fall. As I shared before, what I did last year with the workshop was I had everything mapped out, and then I just did the workshop in its entirety, and then I spent the rest of the year breaking it down for us. And this year I've done the opposite. I've broken it down first, and then I'm going to do the workshop, as I said, in the fall. So you'll be very prepared and hopefully ready to collaborate and interact and share what you've learned along the way. Okay, so let's get into this. A lot of this, I'm just going to read my notes because this is all pertinent and important, and I want to make sure I get it all in. And many of you know, especially those who follow on She's Restored, I usually just go as I'm led. So as I said, I think I have 6 pages of notes. So this might be a little lengthy, but it's going to be worth it. So grab some paper, something to write with, and get ready to be fed in the core of yourself, which is your spirit. Okay, so what is our spirit? It is the core and foundational part of self. And it is found in our inner being. Many of you who follow me on She's Restored know that I talk a lot about the soul and the spirit and the body. So the spirit is interconnected and intertwined in a very unique, divine, and hard to understand way by God Himself. It is part of the Trinity of Self. And it is the anchor of self. So the degree of health that your spirit is in is going to pour into the health of your soul, which is your mind, your heart, and your will. Or you could say your thoughts, your emotions, and your decision making. So it's very important that we know where we are spiritually, so that we have an anchor for the rest of ourselves. Okay, we were created in the likeness of God, and God is spirit. He is the Spirit. He is the Holy Spirit. God is triune in nature, meaning He has 3 parts of who He is. And that is to say, 3 persons in one. So in the same way, since we are created in His likeness, we have 3 distinct parts of self, which is spirit, soul, body. And within these 3, there is more 3s. It's completely amazing and mind-blowing for me, because everything is by design. And when you know the design, then you know how it functions. So the 3 main parts of self, spirit, soul, and body, As I said, the soul is mind, heart, and will. And then within each of those, there's 3 interconnections to all of it. Okay. Now, our spirit is the invisible part of self. That is in a constant quest and search for a place called rest. Now, this is pivotal and foundational. Okay, we are created to live and function in rest. That sounds foreign because most of the time we are operating in some kind of stress or anxiety mode because of life, because of the world and how things operate and function, and we are subject to what's around us. But in actuality, when God created us in spirit, we were created to be in a state of rest. This is why we're always looking for peace, okay? When we are at rest, we can experience the many wonderful, abundant blessings that God intended us to possess. These are those spiritual and often intangible blessings that can only come directly from God. Now remember, everything that is spiritual in its perfection is God given and God ordained, and therefore He is the source of those things. And we're going to get into this. When our spirit is not at rest or has yet to find it, its nature is to seek. So our nature is to seek rest because that is intrinsically what we long for. So when we're looking for that in other places, it will lead to temporal or temporary escapes or pleasure to feel or experience what we intrinsically long for. In other words, if I'm trying to find peace in people, or I'm trying to find peace in activities, or anything outside of the spirit of God, I'm not going to find the true authentic peace that I long for and rest, because it is directly from Him. So let's talk about these spiritual blessings that come directly from God Himself and really are what we are in a constant search and quest for. And there's many, but I'm highlighting the main 3 because this covers everything in life, okay? So the first is love. Love is the essence of God, actually. He is love. Knowing love directly from God helps us to understand love for self and therefore empowers us to love others. So it's very, very impossible to love other people or yourself without first knowing love Himself. This is why the disconnection will lead us to places we don't want to go, and lead us to situationships and relationships that are toxic and unhealthy, because we don't understand the foundation of this love, which comes from God. Secondly is peace, which I'm touching up on right now. Peace is a spiritual state that we have inherited by nature. This is something that we don't need to look for in other places or other people. And again, because we're human and we're curious and constantly wanting to learn and grow, we may often find ourselves trying to find peace in places that we are not going to find it. And the reason is because it is a spiritual existence that is between self and God. So in other words, when I have peace in my heart and peace in my mind, it is because I am connected spiritually to the source of peace, who is God himself. And the third one is joy. Joy makes me excited because I've experienced joy, the joy of the Lord, which is something that is supernatural, actually. It is not happiness, because happiness is contingent on circumstance or relationships, and that can shift and change at any time. But joy is a spiritual inheritance from God, who is the source of joy. It is supernatural. It is beyond reasoning. We can feel it, just like we can feel love and we can feel peace. But it does transcend the intellectual reasoning and rationalizing and trying to figure things out part of the mind. And it does transcend the what I feel in my heart. It is supernatural and it is amazing. And it is given to us freely because, again, it is a spiritual inheritance for our spirit from God himself. When our spirit has not found these three, and I said these three are the main ones because they really are sort of the foundation of all the rest. So when we don't have these from the source himself, who is God, we often run after fleeting and inevitably harmful or even dangerous substitutes. And this is what our lives are like. Because we are constantly searching and in a quest for love, peace, and joy, when we don't know the route of obtaining those, we can find ourselves looking for it, as I said, in people and in places which are subject to change at any given time. They may seem exciting at first, or momentarily alleviating our hunger or thirst, or spiritual hunger or spiritual thirst, because in essence, that's what we're looking for, is that core of self to be quelled. Okay? We will soon find out that this wasn't what I was looking for. So we keep looking in places, in people, in things to satisfy the part of self that only God can satisfy, quench, and fulfill. Okay? So if you're in a space where you are seeking love, you are seeking peace, and you are seeking joy, you're not alone in this, because this is human nature. It is intrinsic and inevitable that we seek after these, okay? And as human beings who are designed to have community and relationship, it's very natural to want to find it there first. But in actuality, the core of this spiritual fulfillment, which is what we're seeking and needing, comes directly from the source, who is God. Okay? Because our spirit is designed to be connected to God always and at all times, when we are disconnected from God, we are disconnected from self. Okay, that's a powerful statement, but it really is the crux of understanding the spirit. If I feel disconnected from myself, it is because I am disconnected from God. Because God is the one who tells me about myself. He knows you better than you know yourself because He created you and He designed you uniquely and intrinsically. You long to know why you're here. You long to know your purpose, your calling, your assignment. You long to know all of these things that we're talking about, these spiritual inheritances. And the way you know this is by having a connection. And we're going to get into this to understand a little bit more, okay? Disconnection from self. Again, this is sort of a recap of what I just said, but disconnection from self causes us to search for temporary substitutes, okay? Again, I'm searching for the permanence that my spirit needs and longs for to know who I am, know why I'm here. But when I try and do it outside of a relationship with God, I'm going to find myself feeling discouraged and dejected and in all kinds of messes and places that I don't want to be in. And many of us have already suffered this, okay? We have all tried to find love in people, peace in circumstances or situations, and joy in fleeting substitutes for these things, okay? To make us feel better, to make us think certain things, or to make us become who we think we should be or who we think we are. But I'd like to share a few, I'll call them keys, to finding your connection with God, or to help you reconnect with God if you are at a place where you once felt close to Him, but you stopped communicating or communing with Him. And this is going to set us free, actually, today. This is where we want to take especially good notes, because I have some questions for us, and some things to ponder, and sort of a self check-in evaluation to see, where am I at spiritually today? Where do I feel strong in my connection with God? Or do I even feel like I have a connection with God? Because we're all in different places. But the connection, I will say, is always there, because He created us, and we are, in a sense, we have a spiritual umbilical cord to God at all times. We simply need to acknowledge it and cultivate that relationship. Like any relationship, for it to grow and to be strengthened and to be close, we need to invest time and energy and focus on it so that we can have the fruit of that relationship. Okay? So in the same way, our relationship with God will only be as strong or as close as we allow it to be by how much time we spend in that connection with Him. Okay? And I'm going to share some ways that we can do this. But first, I want to ask you, where are you today in relation to God? When you think of God, what comes to mind? Here's two sub questions. What do you think as you feel, or what do you think or feel about God now? So what are your thoughts when you think of God or the idea of God? what comes to mind? What are you thinking and what are you feeling? Because this is your starting point. My relationship with God is what right now? What has your experience, and this is a B question in number 1. What has your experience been in relation to him? Now I want to say this is very important to remember, because typically speaking, our first introduction to God typically comes from our parents. Now, it can come directly, as in they told us about God or they taught us about God, or it can come indirectly by how they demonstrated God's love and honor, or how they didn't demonstrate God's love and honor. Because our first relationship and relationships are with our parents and our siblings if we're younger. And God doesn't ever change. God is the same. Some have a revelation of his true nature and some do not. So if, for example, I was raised in a home where we didn't talk about God, or I didn't know anything about God, then my understanding of God would be, I don't know him. I don't know who he is. I was never taught about him or told about him. And yet, there's a longing within that needs to know him. And if you're there, then you have the opportunity to choose for yourself to have that connection. If you were raised in the opposite scenario or situation where you were taught about God and you went to church and you experienced, the consistent practice of showing him reverence, let's say on Sundays, or if you were in a very religious home and it was always around, we all have different upbringings when it comes to how we see God and how we view God. But there comes a time where you choose for yourself, what do I believe about God? What is my experience? And what do I want to believe about him, and what do I want to experience when it comes to him? And I will say this because this is important. Many of us have had a very bad experience when we connect to God because of church, or because maybe somebody who claimed to be a believer or a Christian hurt us. These things affect us, and these things can actually cause us to run away from God when we've been shown or given demonstrations, because again, people are flawed. None of us are perfect or have it all together. So but those experiences matter, and they build or they tear down our connection to God. So ponder this for a while. Where are you in relation to God? Okay? And again, just to recap, it's A and B, so that the two other questions underneath this one. What do you think or feel about God now? And what has your experience what has your experience been? I can't read my own writing. In relation to him. Okay? Now, number 2, this is sort of getting into what I was just talking about, but what are the obstacles disturbing your connection with God? Okay? So this can be something that's present. Or past. So as I mentioned, church hurt. Maybe you had a very bad experience at church and it put you off and it made you just shut God out completely. Okay? Maybe you experienced trauma through somebody in the church. You know, all of these things can affect how we view God. So I'm asking here on number 2, what are the obstacles disturbing your connection with God? Because again, remember, we were created to commune with Him. He is the source of our breath. So we long for connection to, some of us call Him a higher power. We long for a supernatural connection to the essence of self, which is spirit. Okay? Number 3, how can we repair the connection? Okay? And this is actually the remedy for those of us who are in a place where I just don't feel connected to God. I don't know who He is. I've never really spent time with Him, or it's been a long time since I've thought about God. Okay? What I'm going to share now is how we can repair that disconnection and that interference in our spiritual soundness. Okay? So, number 1, the way you can repair your connection to God is to seek Him. Okay? God created us for relationship. And first and foremost, He created us to relate to Him. So we can know who He is, and so we can know who we are. Okay? Relationship, as I mentioned before, it requires time and energy and investment, commitment, faithfulness, loyalty, you know. It's the same thing. I'm only going to be as close to God as I want to be by how much time and energy I put into my relationship with Him. But I must first come to a place where I want to seek Him, okay? Or ask Him for guidance, for wisdom, for knowledge, or how to help you find your spirit. In fact, if you're in a place now where you don't even think about Him, or you know, your spirit's stirring because now you're curious, this would be a good time to ask Him, show me who you are, you know, because God is invisible. Sometimes it's hard for us to, again, in our intellectual reasoning, well, I don't see Him, so how do I know He's there? How do I know He exists? And again, this is where we come back to that spiritual core and understanding that it is beyond what I can see. It's beyond what I can comprehend. It's beyond my 5 senses or other senses that we have to actualize or realize His existence. I like to say God exhibits who He is in nature. If you were to just step outside and take a look around you and see the beauty, the canvas of nature, that is who He is. That is how intricate and creative He is. So ask Him, God, who are you? And show me who I am. Seek Him. And that is to petition or request a relationship. God created each of us very, very, very uniquely, very tailored. If you think about, speaking of nature, if you think about a snowflake, how each snowflake is so different and unique, or even a butterfly or flowers, that is how creative he is. So when he created you, when he created me, he created unique. So in the same way, how he speaks to you and how he relates to you is just as unique as you are. Everything you like, everything you don't like, everything that stirs your heart or your mind, awakens your mind, all of this is by design. It's God-given. So in the same way, this can be an avenue to seek God through the things that you already know about yourself. Okay? I've shared a lot, but one of the ways the Lord speaks to me is through music, because he knows how much I love music. So a lot of times, whether it's an inner healing thing or if he's showing me something prophetic, personally or corporately, he will use music to speak to me. So find out how that connection is with you, because it is personal, unique, and tailored to you. So number 2, be still and listen. If we want to get to know somebody, we need to quiet and listen so we can learn more about who they are. So in the same way, when we're getting to know God, it requires us to be still. That is to say, I got to take some time to myself so I can quiet my mind, unplug from social media or television, whatever it is, so I can quiet my mind. And in fact, that's a whole teaching by itself, is learning how to quiet your mind. Because it's amazing how much we don't think about it, especially when we're on autopilot. You know, we're just going through our routine and we're just on the go. We're going to work, we're doing all this stuff. It's amazing how much we forget that I have the key to the gate of my mind. I can choose what I let in, and I can choose what I don't let in. My thoughts. I can't choose what's coming at me. You know, I can't choose everything that's bombarding me, but I can choose to receive it or reject it. So in the same way, we have to be still and listen. Okay? God is always speaking to his creation. So we have to learn to cultivate that stillness so that we can have time and we can have energy, and the ability to listen. Okay? Now listening is deeper than hearing. Listening is intently receiving what is given to me. Okay? Again, this requires deliberate time aside to spend with God and being available to just listen. And he will speak to you. He speaks to all of us. That's another thing that that I like to echo a lot, is that God is always speaking to us. We just need to pay attention. As I mentioned, one of the ways he speaks to me is through music. I mean, he'll speak through anything. He'll speak through numbers, signs. You just have to pay attention. But he's always speaking to you, always. It's more a matter of choosing to receive what he's saying and choosing to build that connection with him, or strengthen that connection with him if you're already walking with him and praying and understanding how he speaks. Okay? And the last one is to trust him. Now, this is a lifelong process, learning how to trust God, okay? Because trust requires us to be vulnerable. And it requires us to be in a posture of surrender. Now, what I will say here is that God is the only one we can fully trust because He holds the very breath of our life. Okay? If I can count on the fact that I'm breathing because God is pouring breath into my lungs, then I can trust Him with my next breath because He's already, in essence, in charge of my life. Okay? But because of, many of you know who follow me on She's Restored, because of the two foundational pillars of our brokenness, which is my childhood and upbringing and my life experiences, we can develop a hardness or indifference to God because of what we've been through. And that's a whole other realm of teaching, but it does impact our ability to trust God. Especially, as I mentioned before, if you have experienced painful experiences or trauma within a religious institution or sect or circle, it is very hard to learn to trust God after that. And if you have been through that, I'm very sorry. I understand that burden and that pain. But what I will say is that people are not perfect. They are flawed and broken. We all are. And so those experiences that tainted your view of God can be healed, and they can be repaired, and they can be restored with time, with patience, and with a willingness to try again. And I hope that for you if you've been through this. Trusting Him, again, it's a lifelong process. And it starts with one day at a time. Once you decide to believe in God, then you can learn to trust His Spirit, guiding your spirit. Okay? Believing is a deeper realm of knowing. Again, because we tend to mostly function as humans through the cerebral understanding, intellectual understanding, that can hinder us sometimes, because in actuality we do have a spiritual mental connection that, again, it transcends logic, because really it's not logical to believe in an invisible being. It's not. It's supernatural. And it's belief, which is the core of your heart. Believing, that is to put your whole trust and faith in something that I can't see. Okay? And that does not come natural for us. But at the same time, it does, because it is intrinsically intertwined with who we are. That is to have a connection with God. He is faithful. God is faithful. He will never negate anything He has spoken. And that is to say, He has spoken in His Word, or He has spoken to your spirit. He is true. That's to say, it's absolute. It doesn't change. It doesn't waver. It's not relative truth, which is what we're used to. We're used to something being true one day and the next day maybe it's not. when it comes to the Spirit, He is constant. And He will guide you on a beautiful path to the blueprint for your life. In fact, He already is. You simply need to tune in to His frequency. That's all I have for you today. I'm going to wrap up with this verse, which is a beautiful verse, encouraging verse, one that I've held on to for a while. And it's in Jeremiah 29, verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. He wants you to have a future and a hope, and He knows the plans that He has for you. And I invite you and your spirit to seek Him today. Love you all so much, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great rest of the week, and I'll be back soon because I want to finish our series. I'm very excited, and get that workshop out too. So I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.